1 minute. And I want to be very respectful of your time. If you are like me, you might have children waiting for you at home. And I want to make sure that you get back to either your children or your other family members. It is a weeknight. So thank you so much for taking time. It's really an honor to be here. I want to start off by making sure that we introduce our librarian. So I had the honor of being a city council member for the city of San Diego for 8 years. And that meant that I spent a lot of time in this building. I had office hours once a month on a Friday, either in this space or the space next door. And I'm so happy that Coco, our librarian, is still here. Please give a hand to Coco, our librarian from Otay Mesa. She's been dedicated to this community, to the children, to the families for a long time, and it's just beautiful to be back in this great space. Love libraries. So as I'm sure you're all aware by now, I am your assembly member. I am your representative in the state capitol, and I am really pleased that during this time of the year, I am not as much in the state capitol. I am more in San Diego, which means I get to spend time with my family a lot more, but I also get to spend time with the people of the community, which ultimately my job is to represent the people of the community. And in Sacramento, it's to vote on and to debate laws that then get passed and ultimately, if signed by the governor, become laws for all of us in California. But I'm happy to be here, and I wanted to just go over the agenda just so that we all know what we've got for today. So I'll do some introductions, then we'll talk about what our office does, the services that we provide, so that you have maybe a little bit better understanding of what we do and what we can do for you. And then we'll talk a little very briefly about how a bill goes from an idea, which can start from any one of you, then goes through a whole process and then potentially becomes a law. Talk a little bit about the work I've been able to do this year representing our community. And then some of the things that I'll be focusing on, the priorities that I see from conversations I've been having with people throughout the community, and hopefully some conversation that we'll have with you today. We'll have some ideas of some priorities, and then we'll talk about some upcoming events. And then we do ask if you have questions, we want to answer them. So if you can please fill out those forms so that then we can try to answer them and get you all out of here by the 7 o'clock hour as promised. So again, thank you very much. And let me start by introducing, this is me. This is me and my family. My daughter is 13, is about to turn 14. She's an 8th grader. And my son is 9 years old. I am a proud San Diegan, born and raised. My parents came to this country as immigrants. My dad was a janitor. My mom was a fast food worker. And I'm the youngest of 6 and the first one in my family to attend college. And it was because of that opportunity of education that I feel that I'm here today, and why a lot of the work you're here that I'm doing is focused around education. And also because I'm raising 2 kids, and I want to make sure that that our community is a good place, a safe place, and that their learning environment is a good place for them as well, so they can also thrive like all the other children in our community. As I said earlier, I was a council member from 2010 to 2018, representing San Diego. I then started my own small business. And I spent a lot of time. I was the president of our PTA for my kids' elementary school. I volunteer on trying to help with my kids' sports activities, and that's where I'm usually on Saturdays. You'll find me doing activities with the kids. And I was elected last year to the State Assembly, and so I've been representing this community for the last year. These are the wonderful individuals who work with me, who work for you, who help us answer your questions about, you have questions about a law that's being proposed, maybe you heard about an idea that's out there and you have questions, is that really what the law is or what the bill is intending to do? This is a team to talk to, or as you'll hear about the services that we provide, you'll hear about who might be able to help you. These are the individuals that might be able to help you with those services that we provide. So in Sacramento, I have those individuals that are listed at the top, and they're there all the time. And then we have 3 of our individuals. Lisa, sorry, up there is here in San Diego, and the 3 individuals below, they're all here. So Lisa's here, Lisa can wave, and Chris is here, and Mayra is here, and Liliana is here as well. And so this is the team that's here all the time. Our office is located in Chula Vista. It's kind of the middle of the whole area I represent. I represent from the border, just south of here, to just about downtown San Diego in the Barrio Logan Heights community. We also have a fantastic internship program, and we have 2 of our interns here today. We have Ivana here, and we have Carlo, and they are both high school students, but have been interning with our office, learning about how government works, being at our fairs, our community fairs, providing resources and information, and are also in the office available to assist with casework, with issues that come up. Aria is not here, is she? Aria is also an intern, a college intern in our office, and then Jay is an intern of ours in Sacramento. So this is an important slide because I know I would not be in government if it weren't for my opportunity to learn about what government is and how it functions. And I think we need to continue to invest in our young people understanding about government and why it's an important job and why we need people who are prepared and ethical and who value community service and public service. And so that's why the internship is so important. And we always have opportunities available if you know of a young person who'd like to either intern here or in our Sacramento office. I will not go through all of these. I am assigned to different committees to do work on behalf of the legislature. In these committees, we discuss all the different topics. And one of the things that I tell people about why do I enjoy my job in Sacramento, and it's because I get to literally every single topic and every single issue, from healthcare to education to business to insurance to housing to mental health. Every issue that we can come across, Sacramento and the laws that we pass or the laws that we debate will potentially have an impact around that issue. The environment, all of these things. And so that's one of the things that's exciting. And these committees that I serve on all deal with different issues. So everything from aging and long-term care to making sure that we're taking care of our aging population. We have, by the year 2030, 1/4 of Californians, 25% of all Californians will be seniors. That means that we need to prepare as a state, how are we going to deal with that? Not just from what we normally think of like healthcare needs, yeah, that's important, but also social, emotional needs, housing, how our built environment is, how our public facilities either are accessible or not accessible. And so that's an important committee for me for that reason. Veterans and Military Affairs, San Diego obviously is very important to our nation's national security. So many people that are in San Diego come here and stay here because of their service to our country. And so I serve on that committee as well. And then I serve on the budget committee focusing on education. And these are all the committees that I work on. I do have one thing I want to mention here because we have an event listed. I serve as a chair of a very select committee, a special committee that's focusing on the issue of connecting communities that were divided by the freeway system. So in the 1940s and 50s, freeways were being built in our country and in our state. Oftentimes, whether it's San Isidro, Little Italy, Barrio Logan, Sherman Heights, Golden Hills, those communities were literally divided and wiped out because we made way for highway systems. And there were people who used to live there who unfortunately were forced to move out. And so this select committee, and we're having our very first hearing, and it will be here in San Diego. So we will have people from Sacramento, legislators and others come to talk about what can we do as California to help create connections once again between these communities that have been divided by these highway systems. So that meeting will happen on Friday, December 8th. It'll be at the Cesar Chavez of the community college system in Barrio Logan. I invite you all to come join us at that. Chris, you're going to have to this thing locked up. Oh, go back one, or I'll do it. So this is the district that I represent. It's almost 500,000 people that I represent, and it's pretty expansive, but it starts in the north of well, where I live actually in the Barrio Logan Heights area includes Sherman Heights. That's the San Diego up there. And then it comes all the way south to the border, including Imperial Beach, National City, all of Chula Vista, and all of Otay Mesa and San Isidro. Those are the areas that I represent. These are some statistics about our community. We have a median household income of $50,000, which is really a working class community is really what we are. High school graduation rate is in the mid-70s. Only have 15% of our population has a college education, and that's going to matter as to you as I share with you some of the work that I'm doing around higher education and bringing higher education opportunities to the south part of San Diego. And our number one industry is the defense industry, which is not shocking. We have Naval Station San Diego over in Coronado, but really close to here, and then 32nd Street over in just north of National City area. This is the services that are provided with our office, and it's just a sample, and we also have a listing of services here at the table. But if you have it come across related to, for example, unemployment or disability or any employment-related issues, we have oftentimes a more direct connection to get you a response, especially if you've been trying, and you have not been able to get a response. So I recommend that if you have any issues, whether it's on this or the rest of the items that I'll talk about, if you want to get some assistance, you should call our office, and then we can call. Usually these headquarters are all in Sacramento. Usually we have access to people who oftentimes you have to call a line, you have to be waiting and on hold. We probably can have a little bit of a quicker response for you. Doesn't mean that we'll get you the exact answer that you would like to hear, but an answer that you deserve to hear, which is a response from these departments, the DMV, the Franchise Tax Board, Medi-Cal, Corrections and Rehabilitation, our prison system, state parks, recreation, fair employment and housing, Caltrans. These are all the resources that we have, the departments that we work with, the resources like mortgage relief, small business grant assistance, food banks and meal programs. And then obviously we're available to listen, and the most important part of your responsibility as citizens is to communicate with us about how you feel about things that are coming before me as we're debating the legislature. Things to see maybe change or be different about proposed laws, proposed bills. Those are our legislative issues, and we really want to hear from you. I can tell you that when I am voting on things on the chamber, in the chamber of the one of the first things I have a tablet that sits in front of me. What I do is I click on the tab as the being discussed that has comments. Whether we had comments from people who live in the district or if we did not. That the first flag that gets raised for me is, were there people in the community that reached out on this? Okay, if there were, then I need to consider what did they say? So we log all of your comments, whether it's via email or on the phone, and that helps me make decisions that are better informed and more representative of what the community would like to see. So I really encourage you to reach out if you ever hear about a bill, an idea that you just think, did I just hear right? We can also give you more information about whether or not the bill actually, what you heard in the news is actually what the bill is intending to do. And then obviously, ideas that come from you on legislation, and I'll share with you one specific idea that came from somebody in the community that reached out to me and said, I have an idea for a law, and right now that idea is sitting on the governor's desk waiting to be signed or vetoed, hopefully signed, and I'll tell you what that is in a moment. I often am afraid of sharing a slide like this because it looks very convoluted, go from one thing to another. Essentially, it's how a bill becomes a law. It goes through, it gets introduced, it goes through committees, then it's voted on by the full assembly, in the case that if I introduce the bill, and then it goes through the Senate and it does the same thing. It goes through committees, and if it passes that and it's substantially similar, that's really the end of it, and then it goes to the governor for his or her, in our case, his signature or veto. That's the process. It usually takes several months for this process to play out. And then if it gets signed by the governor, or if the governor doesn't sign it, but he doesn't veto it, so he just does nothing, then it becomes law on January 1st of the following year. So this is some of the work that we've been focusing on in the last year. One of the big things that I'm really excited about, because I care so much about education and I believe that we should have access to higher education in the South Bay. Just this picture was from yesterday, actually, and you might have seen it in the newspaper or saw it in the news. We broke ground on the Chula Vista state-of-the-art facility. It's a library, but it's also a commercial office space, and there's also a couple of floors dedicated that we hope will bring in higher education, an institution like a university, to provide some educational opportunities on that site. So we had initially, just to be clear, because I think there was some mention of this in the newspaper, the initial idea was to bring the School of Television and Film from San Diego State to the site. Because of costs, as you all know, everything has increased in cost, and the parameters of the building, we weren't able to guarantee that program just yet, but we're still working with San Diego State to see what programs do fit in that configuration so that we can have some programs and some university studies on that site. And then not far from this site, we have the site that we were able to acquire, the almost 400 acres for the actual future campus of a university. And that was work that we did this year as well, because what was happening is that that land that we had worked so hard over the years to acquire was become housing, which we all need housing. That's an important thing to do. The goal of that from the city of Chula Vista for years and years, for decades actually, was for that to become a future university site. So we were able to get legislation through, the governor did sign this, that now protects that land for future university use. So that is adjacent, very close to this site where this library is being built. And these are the other bills that are awaiting the governor's signature. None of them have been signed yet. The governor has until October 14th to sign these bills into law or to veto them. The first one is a binational tuition waiver program, which would recognize that we are in a binational region. We have 170,000 people who cross the border every single day, the vast majority to work. They live in Tijuana because they can afford to live there, but they work here in the United States. Of those, there's an estimate that roughly 7,000 of them are students that are crossing every single day. And so this bill recognizes that we have this dynamic in our region, and what it does is it gives the students the opportunity to attend our community college system as if they were living in California. And so what that means is that they don't have to pay a foreign tuition rate, which is significantly higher. Even though community college is still relatively affordable, it would be 5 times as expensive if they were treated as a foreign student coming from a foreign country than if they were treated as a California student. And again, we believe that because they are a regional asset for us, that if we educate them and train them, they will provide us with future benefits in our region. This bill would allow them to attend our community college system as an in-state student for paying that lower rate. They also would have to be low-income students to qualify for that program. AB 436, this one got a lot of press attention. It's removing the ban on cruising. This started also because of constituents in National City. They were trying to get that law that banned cruising and into effect, and the city wouldn't do it for a long time. So then I decided to take this effort to the state. And in the meantime, finally National City did pass that, eliminated that ban on cruising. But there are other cities throughout the state that not only ban cruising, but if you've ever been to any of our park events at Robert Egger or anywhere else here at Montgomery Waller, and you see those old classic cars, whether they're lowriders or classic cars, technically speaking, those cars are actually illegal and they can be cited because of the height from the ground. And so what this bill does, it not only does it make it legal for you to cruise, which means you can drive around slowly and not be cited and given a ticket or pulled over by a police officer, but also if you have one of those vehicles, that can also not be an excuse now for police to pull you over just because you drive that kind of vehicle. So that's pending signature. 425, this is the one that a student, a student from Chula Vista reached out to me and they talked to me about this issue that's happening. she told me her story, and she's given permission to share her story. She was suffering from depression, anxiety, and suffering from other mental health crisis for quite a while. And she was on medication and she was getting treatment, but unfortunately that medication and the treatment was not effective. It was not being successful for her. So her mother found a group of people online who said, you know, have you tried to do this testing? There's this testing that you can do that will tell you whether or not that medication is the appropriate medication for your daughter. That testing, or that field, is called pharmacogenomics, and it's the testing of your genes as it relates to different medication. And so the young girl did that test, and they found out that the medication that she was on was not appropriate for her genetic makeup and was switched over to other medication. And today you would not identify her at all as someone who was suffering from very severe mental health crisis to her high state of functioning today, because she was able to do this test. So she shared that story with me, and she said, you know, we really should require that people get offered that test if they're on medication and it's not really working. And so what this bill does is it would cover anybody who has a Medi-Cal coverage. It would cover the cost of their test, which is roughly, in the market, it costs about $250 to $300 for this test. Obviously, if you're on Medi-Cal, you probably can't afford something like that. So this bill would cover the cost of that so that you're able to get this test done. And there are some private insurers, by the way, who do cover this, because they realize that it makes more sense to get you on the right medication to get you healthy than to have you on the wrong medication. Not all private medical insurance companies do that. And that's something that we'll see if we can have that conversation later. If we're successful with this, maybe have this conversation later about having coverage for everybody, because I think it's a good idea to be able to get tested and know whether or not medicine is hurting you or helping you. I'll go quickly through the next two. These are housing. Housing is the number one issue as I talk to people, as I've talked to many of you in the community. People cannot afford to live in California. People are having trouble staying in California. And those of you who are parents like I am, I often think about, where are my children going to live? I hear that almost on a very regular basis when I'm out in the community. So these two bills are focused on that. One, it's on creating incentives so that more housing is built for middle-income families. So we hear a lot of programs that are for low-income families. Those are good, and we need them because there are families who need to qualify for those. But what happens often is that if you just left college and you have your first job out of college, you're probably actually making too much money and you don't qualify for low-income housing. And so what this bill does is it creates middle-income housing, so it's more meant for middle class, and it would require that the cost of the rent, or for sale, if they choose to sell those properties, has to be for people who are making middle-income wages. And so that's what that bill does. The next one, it helps to make the building of affordable housing faster by eliminating CEQA, which is a process which often holds back. It's a bureaucratic and governmental process. It was a law that was passed by former President Reagan, who was at that point Governor Reagan of California, and it was intended to protect our environment and our natural species, but that really has been weaponized and used for stopping projects and stopping especially affordable housing projects in other communities that just can hire lawyers and can fight all these projects, prolong them, and oftentimes the developer just says, well, I'm not going to build, it's too much trouble. And then the housing just doesn't get built. So this allows those projects to get built faster. And then the last one I already talked about, which is the land for the Chula Vista University project. That was already signed by the governor in the summer. And so we are moving forward with, I don't know if it's on here or not, I don't recall, but we have a committee that's currently undertaking a study as to what are the types of majors, what are the types of careers that we want to prepare for at this university site. So then we can go after those universities and ask them to come to this site and have their programs here in the South Bay and Chula Vista. I'm trying to go quickly through this because I want to leave at least 30 minutes, half of the meeting, for questions. I am the chair of the audit committee. We've done some audits already as a result of what we heard from people. Two that are ongoing is this middle class tax refund cards that people got last year that some people threw away, actually. Some people had their balances withdrawn. basically theft occurred. And we're doing an audit as to how that program was rolled out and whether it was done in the right way, because we received a lot of calls from people in the community. So that's audit that's being done as we speak. And then we have an issue in the state with people who are primarily low-skilled workers whose wages aren't being paid. So it's called wage theft. And unfortunately, those investigations are not going quickly enough. They're supposed to be finished within 120 days, and they're taking oftentimes years. And these are wages that were earned by the workers and that they were not paid. And so we have an audit going on that because we want to know, why is this taking so long? Why is this is something that should be happening quicker? Where is the bottleneck? Who is not doing what they're supposed to be doing? And so this is another audit that's been in the works. Two that we had come forward this year is one on sexual harassment in the CSU system. We do have a major problem with not investigating sexual harassment in our college system. Why does that matter? Because we expect our schools to be safe places for our kids. And so we have this audit that determined that in some cases, some of the complaints weren't even investigated. It's actually a very serious issue. We will be doing legislation to strengthen this, to make sure that the universities at each one of our 22 campuses in the CSU system has a protocol in place so that every complaint gets investigated, because it was just shocking to see how that wasn't a system that was functioning. And then CPUC and SEG&E audit, we see these rate increases are impacting all of us, more and more cost. So we had an audit done on this, and that was finally presented this year as well. And things that need to be improved so that those increases are really justifiable, or that they really shouldn't be happening unless it's merited. And I think, going forward, this is probably one of my last slides. We continue to have a crisis with our water in Imperial Beach. I want to recognize the work of Mayor Imperial Beach, even though she's not here, Mayor Aguirre, who's been really leading the charge. We have been asking and calling on the governor to declare an emergency. We are now focusing on pushing the administration in Washington, D.C. with President Biden to declare that emergency. We believe that declaring an emergency, not only will it make more money available to address this problem, but also it will expedite some of the bureaucratic processes that often gets in the way. We now actually, for the first time, have a plan of what it's going to take to get this addressed. The problem is it's taking too long. And so what we need to do is we need to waive as many rules as we possibly can so that this project can happen as quickly as they possibly can. And that is going to take an act of waiving of federal laws. And so we're really focusing on that issue right now, trying to push us to get there. And so that's ongoing. AB 1597 is a bill that is looking to have California invest more money in resolving some of these binational problems, whether it's the water quality problem or the air quality problem. And so that's a bill that wasn't completed this year, and so we're going to be working on that in January. And then I said this yesterday, I've said it publicly quite a bit, but if by the time that I leave office, and I'm hoping to serve the full extent of the terms that I'm eligible for, we don't have at the minimum one building with a 4-year university presence at this campus that we've now secured the land for, then I will not have done my job. And I think there's no reason why we can't do this. It's happened before. I just read yesterday, as we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, an assembly member in the 1860s was the person who led the charge to get UCLA built. It actually started as what they used to call normal school, which was a teaching college, as we had here in San Diego. And Assemblymember Del Valle was his name. He led the charge to bring the first real university to Southern California. This was in the 1860s. The other example I point to people to is CSU San Marcos. That is a full-fledged university that we have in San Diego County. But it hasn't been that way for very, very long. It started out of a middle school with roughly a couple hundred students, and then it went into a commercial space, like a strip mall, for a while. And then finally, decades later, it had its first building, and now, again, it's a full university. And I like to share that story. We did that research because it's been really hard to get people to get excited and board and to believe that a university is possible in the South Bay, because we just see it as such an insurmountable, large-scale, difficult project. But these things don't happen overnight. They happen by being consistent, by being persistent, and this is really my big project, because too many of our families in the South Bay are being locked out of educational opportunities because of the impacted programs at San Diego State, impacted programs at UCSD, and we have to have alternative educational opportunities. And so we're focusing. We don't just want to open up a new university with biology and psychology, the same thing that exists everywhere else. We are purposefully, for the next year, and you'll be invited to this if you signed up, we will have community forums about what are the careers and what are the education tracks that we think are the most valuable to offer at this university site, so that we're offering degrees that could be put to use so that people can achieve those career goals. If they want a biology degree and a psychology degree, we applaud that too, but this will probably not be the place for them. We have other alternatives. We want to focus on where can we be more competitive as a region, where can we create more jobs for our region, and that's the goal of this study that's currently being undertaken. And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, and Lisa in my office is leading this work, but in a couple of months we'll be having community forums about what does this data show? What did we identify? Which are the future careers? Where do we need more people to be employed and trained? And we'll be sharing that with the community and collecting feedback. And by June of next year, we will have the entire report of what are the types of university programs that we want to go after for this four-year university. So I'm really excited about that work, and it's going to keep me probably one earlier today. As we have an aging population, we'll have 25% of California will be seniors by 2030. We probably need to find more ways to build housing that's adaptable for that population. And so we probably need to find a way to incentivize that, to make sure that that housing is being built. And so that's probably some work that I'll be focusing on. Funding for our schools. Without education, without those opportunities for our children, we will not have progress, and so that continues to be an issue that I'm worried about. This last one, I'll have to figure this one out. It's really important to me. I lost my father 2 years ago, almost to the date, and I became this caregiver at the end of his life. And again, as we age and we have more intergenerational families living together, older adults with their kids, it's really difficult. It's very heavy weight to carry when you become a caregiver, especially if, in my case, I had my own family and my own kids to worry about. And so what I envision is a system where we can facilitate those who want to care for their loved ones, make it just easier. Make sure not only that they can take the time off of work, but that we can compensate them, especially if their loved one can't afford it, so that they don't get sent to these homes and where people are often just forgotten. We want to make sure that people are living within our community. And so this is an issue that is personally a passion of mine. I can tell you this year I tried to do some work and some legislation around this. I didn't really figure it out. So it's something I'm going to continue to do to see how we can make this an easier pathway. And then lastly, we hope to get your ideas and your, like I said, work that I've been doing has been from ideas that have come from our community. So upcoming events, you're welcome to come to all of these. Or let people know who are from the Otay Ranch or Chula Vista community. That's next week. We're having another town hall. We will have our anniversary for our amazing Cesar Solis Park, which was the first park that we got built when I was on the city council in all of South County in decades. Over there in the Ocean View Hills community. Very, very proud of that park. We're celebrating 5 years, and we're going to have a big celebration there, and you're welcome to join us. And then, because again, education is so critical to me, sometime in the new year, we will be having not just a financial aid workshop, but more of a college event, so that we can provide information to our students. And it'll be somewhere in the South Bay. We think likely, potentially San Isidro High School will be hosting. We had an event like this at Hilltop in Chula Vista last year. We're looking to grow and make it more of a career fair, a college fair, and provide people with counseling and services to fill out those FAFSA forms so that kids can have access to financial aid. And then we'd like to do some legal assistance clinics in the next year as well. So there's more work, obviously, we want to do in partnership with you, and you can sign up at our website there to get our updates. So we're by about 5 minutes, so now I think we're going to turn it over to an opportunity for questions and. Okay, so I guess these have been answered. Yes, I have been to Saturn Boulevard and such. I was just there to smell the Tijuana River that has run continuously for, I think it's been well over a year, not a year, it says a year. Yeah. Will you pressure our governor to declare emergency? Absolutely. We sent I actually coordinated a letter that I got every member of our state legislature to sign, and we sent it to the governor. I think we posted that on social media. And then we also just recently did a letter to the president with all of our representatives from our area also requesting that. So I'll answer that in a second. Let me try to make sure I get through. Oh, here it is, another one. Odor problem in this area. How can you help? So am I aware? Yes, I am very much aware. So you know what we should have done is we should have put up, we'll get to anybody who's interested, the list of projects that have been identified as the projects that will help resolve this issue. So you asked what is the cause. There is a sewage treatment facility, which is not treating sewage, in Baja, not too far from here. And what Scripps, the researchers from Scripps Institute, identified is that the water moves north from the south. That's the way nature works. And so the plume, if you will, imagine a plume of, I would say a plume of sewage, of basically, sewage water, moves in our direction. And so that is what leads to the contamination. That is what the scientists have identified as the reason. Now, there's now a second problem. The treatment plant that is on our side of the border, the one that is down there on Monument, is now also not functioning correctly. That's the one that was recently discovered as not functioning, and that requires $310 million upgrade. Yeah, I don't know how it was recently discovered, given that we've all seen this problem for a long time, but that's a federal treatment plant, and that one also is not functioning as it should. Yes, but not quickly enough. Yeah.
Put a number, put a year.
Chris, what year?
To fix that treatment?
Yeah.
2027.
Yeah. Yeah. This is why we're seeking the federal emergency, right? Because what they are saying is we have to go through all these processes. We have permits, we have environmental reviews, we have procurement. All of these things we believe can be waived with a declaration of emergency. That's why we're asking for the emergency, so that we don't have to wait that long. We're continuing to ask.
We've been living with that problem for about 8 years, 9 years.
Probably for longer than that, yeah.
Probably longer
Yeah.
than that. So, I don't understand why until now it's declared an emergency. Because
Oh, we've been trying to declare emergency for a long time. When I was on the city council, when I got there in 2010, we made a declaration every single year, every single month. We have not been able to get it's a question I can't answer for you because I'm not the president and I'm not the governor. We've asked them to declare these emergencies. They haven't done so.
So what kind of pressure how can we
So the pressure you can do is you can help us. One, we have a petition information that we're going to submit with another request and a reminder to both the state and to the federal government that this emergency that we've got to move forward. And so if you do that, we're going to have your say these are all the people from the community who are asking you to do this. It's not just me, it's not just David Alvarez, or it's not just Mayor Paloma Aguirre. It is all these people that are being impacted. So I ask you, if you haven't signed on to that, to please do so that we can get your name added. What's the website? Cleanercommunities.org. Oh, that's easy to remember. Cleaner Communities. And it's on the phone. Yeah. Please. I'll join you. Let's do it. Yeah.
Isn't this considered a public health?
I believe it's considered a public health issue. Absolutely.
More than a crisis because of that?
Yes.
Like COVID?
Yeah. I think we all feel the same way about this, so I'm trying to answer a few other questions. Let me just offer you my thoughts. I think it's going to take some type of either demonstration to that level, right? Some unfortunate incident, which we hope doesn't happen, but some serious unfortunate incident beyond the already unfortunate situation of the beach being closed for over 600 days. The smell, now in the air, I'm sure you've now heard about this. People getting sick. So it's already sort of reached that level. I don't know if it's going to take someone with a lot of money, which is sad to say, that sues or does something. I am all ears to all the ideas because in my power, I have done everything I could to try to get this to get to a faster resolution. And so we just need to work together and push harder and raise the issue.
A health report?
A health report.
Yeah.
So I guess,
Is it one already?
well, there's a study that's been done that identified the particulate in the air.
Yep.
As far as like health report on the individuals, I'm not aware that one exists. No, there is one on the air quality as a result of the particulate from the mist. Let me get through all these. There's everybody. Let me make sure everybody has a chance. Oh, so these are all on the same issue. Okay, we'll come back to this. Oh, tell me about it. I know it's the biggest problem.
Yeah, how can we pressure Newsom to help, Governor Newsom? I mean, how can we
Join our petition. I mean, we're
petitions we've already done.
yeah.
Are the people that are running the non-functioning charge, or have they been removed and new people?
So. Yeah.
The old people, are they out?
Yeah, I think the old people. I can't tell you exactly like who's out or they're out. We can look into that. Yeah. Yes.
You brought up that bill with the little girl that needed to get her
Yeah.
her testing.
Mhm.
Some other person in Congress brought up a bill to eliminate petty theft and bring it up to $950. And so why isn't it that you can't put up submit an AB bill, fix the problem down in South Bay? I mean, why can't that be done?
We because it is. I mean, it'll be symbolic, and it won't accomplish anything because the problem is a federal problem that requires them to fix their treatment plant or to engage in federal to federal government negotiations with Mexico. So our Congress, you could sue the federal government. Yes, you could. You could sue on anything. Yeah. Hey, anything you all want to do, I'm all game for it. Whatever we need to do to get more attention, we could use the help, to be honest. I don't know what else. We've communicated very clearly to the governor. We've done so now with the president. We can do an assembly resolution to fix it again. We've done that before. So, yeah.
What's the next step?
So we are right now literally in the middle of collecting all of these petitions. So we ask you to please get the word out about these petitions because we want to deliver a substantial number of petitions.
Can we get to one of the members like a stack of petitions so we can?
It's a lot easier
Did you
literally
bring
to
one
just
today?
go on your phone, cleanercommunities.org, and you just type in your name and your address and that's it.
I mean, we gotta be realistic. A lot of people in the community don't even know how to use email.
Well, one thing to do is if you walk around with your phone, you can just say, hey, can I submit your name? And you do it right there. It'll be quicker and easier for us to submit that and to gather the information and to give hundreds of sheets. I mean, we could do that too, but I'll just tell you, it'll be a lot easier on all of us if we just, our family, everybody you know, hey, can you sign up for this? And it's very quick to do.
Do you have a governor individually to have common registration?
Or we can all do it together too and hit up with one strong hundreds of emails in one day.
In the meantime, we have to close up our houses and run our air.
Yeah.
It's comfortable.
It's way beyond the petition
It's
stage.
directly in our pocket. And this wouldn't be happening if it was affecting the people in La Jolla. and
I agree.
other affluent areas.
yep.
This is because it's down here, and that's why it's not getting done.
I agree. I've actually said that same thing to the news media and to the governor and to everybody who would listen to me about this. So I feel the same way.
How about water samples in the actual river itself? The health department, somebody should be taking.
So there is health department who does samples
and
on the water.
testing what all contaminants
Yeah.
are in.
No, it's really dirty water. I mean, no one questions that it's dirty water, that it stinks, that it's bad, that it shouldn't happen. It's just, can we get them to move quickly enough to fix it?
So all these are facts. Why do we do all these again and again and again? Just
Because we're not being
people
listened
are not
to.
aware?
Because we're not being listened to. Yeah.
Do we need somebody with louder voice?
Like, you mean our collective voice? Yes.
No.
That's why we're asking.
The people that represent us with a louder voice.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, everybody's raising their voice on this, but clearly the people that make the decisions aren't listening. Yeah. Okay. This one is on recent outbreak of E. coli. Oh, and the water.
Same problem,
Oh, the water, yes.
same problem.
The investigating by us, who's responsible for it, and all of them get it, but it never happens again. And we shouldn't be spending, have $1 million properties that are willing to get into the water, or can't go outside, and can't go to the beach, can't do anything.
So there is a current investigation happening on the E. coli outbreak to determine why it happened. Yeah, so the State Water Board is currently investigating that, and as soon as, obviously, we hear back, I'm sure the city will hear back, we'll notify folks of the response to that.
Well, the second part to that is the potholes in IP that are notorious.
Uh-huh.
Are you talking, our shops, where are cars? Is from the freeway, all the way to the direct side of the SYB,
Yeah.
and then
So one of the reasons why we do these town halls is because I try to communicate to people on the issues that we can deal with. When I was a city council member, I dealt with potholes in libraries all the time. If it's in the city of Imperial Beach, potholes are responsibility of the city of Imperial Beach. If they are in the city of San Diego, that is with the city of San Diego. So it depends on where they are on either Palm Avenue or Coronado. Okay. Oops. Okay, this is in Spanish. Oh, okay. This one is related to rent control. So a little bit of a different topic. And the need for the cost of rent. So in 2019, we did approve, the legislature approved, I wasn't there yet, but the legislature approved a rent control bill so that rents in the state of California are not allowed to increase by more than 10%. And there were some exemptions to that, but that's the general rule that you should all be aware of. And I'm going to answer this in Spanish because the question was asked in Spanish, so sorry. La pregunta es sobre el control de renta y nada más para recordarles que hace un par de años el estado de California aprobó una ley que no se permite más del 10% de incremento en las rentas año con año. Hay algunas excepciones para eso, pero esa es la razón por que queremos tener esta clínica de asistencia legal, porque parece ser que esa es una de las preguntas que surge mucho, de que les están subiendo la renta y muchas personas no saben cuáles son sus derechos. Entonces, lo que intentamos hacer con estas clínicas legales es darles acceso a abogados que tienen experiencia y conocen de las leyes de inquilinos para que tengan ayuda para resolver esos problemas. So one of the reasons why we're doing legal clinics is because I am hearing now more frequently as I'm doing these conversations, people either have employment issues or they have housing issues, tenant issues. And so the intent with our legal clinics is to bring professional help from experts who actually know the law. I don't know all of the ins and outs of laws, so that people can have access to people who understand the laws, legal folks, so they can help answer the questions of perhaps that they have their own issue as it relates to their employment or their housing situation, because it seems to become a recurring issue in our community. So, okay. Oh, these are all home, okay. Okay, ACA 13. Oh, somebody has been following the legislative process. That's good. Okay, let's start with that one. So ACA 13 is going to be on the ballot in March, and you will all get a chance to vote on this. What this piece of legislation does, it does not at all touch your taxes, either increased or decreasing. It has nothing to do with increasing or decreasing taxes. What it says is that if someone wants to change the law on how many votes it takes to increase taxes, then they have to get approval from the voters by that some percentage. So for example, there is an initiative on the ballot in November now, signatures were gathered, to increase what currently, if you collect signatures to pass a tax increase, currently law says that you need a majority of the voters to vote for that. So you need 50% plus one, and that gets approved. What the people who have an initiative in November, on the ballot in November, they want to say, no, it's no longer 50% plus one. It should take 66% of the people to vote to increase the tax. Even though the law today says 50% plus one, no, we don't want it to be that. We want it to be more. So what ACA 13 does is it says, in order for that to pass, if you want it to be a higher threshold for taxes, then you need to get that same percentage of people to vote for your initiative. So for that to pass, it would require 66% of the voters to approve that, to then say, okay, now going forward, all tax increases require 66% of the voter approval. That's what ACA 13 does. There is a lot of being said in the media, radio personalities saying that it's an attack on Prop 13, that it's going to increase Prop 13. It has nothing to do with Prop 13. It does not change the taxes for what we pay as homeowners when we pay our property tax bill. It does nothing to change even commercial owners of buildings, who also, by the way, if you own a commercial building and you've owned it for 30 years, you're still paying whatever when you bought it. Just like all of us when we buy our house, we pay our property tax from then. It increases, I think, 1% a year or something minimal, but it doesn't increase very much. This would not change that. It's 2%, right? Every year. It increases. Yeah, I mean, if you were at $100 when it started, which doesn't seem realistic, then it would have been 102 the next year, and then about 105 the year after that. It could increase 2% from year to year. That's what Prop 13 is allowed to do. This is now on SB 44. That was a fentanyl bill. There were a lot of fentanyl bills. I don't know which one that is. The ones that I was able to vote on, I voted yes on all of them. And basically, this is sort of what happened. It's not exact to every single bill or proposal, but we had, unfortunately, in the Assembly, I say unfortunately because I disagreed, we had people on a committee who did not believe that we should be increasing penalties for crimes related to fentanyl. There are those of us who disagree with that, but if you're not on that committee, you don't vote, and if it doesn't get voted out of the committee, it never comes to the full assembly. So the bills that were able to make it out of the full assembly, or out of the committee, and came to the assembly, I know for a fact that I voted on all of those bills, and I think there were other bills that didn't come out of the committee that probably should have, and I think we're going to see more bills coming next legislative session, and there's going to be changes in these committees. So I anticipate there will be more laws around fentanyl. And why? Because fentanyl is becoming the number one of people in our community. It is a real crisis, and I believe that we need to make it. Actually considering revisiting this law, because I don't think it was intended that way, but it's being interpreted that way. Sometimes when a law gets passed and you've got bureaucracies who implement laws, they implement it in a certain way. I believe that that was a flawed idea. Basically what it does is it says in a very broad, non-specific way, if you make a lot more money, then you pay a lot more in your electricity rate, but it doesn't take other things into consideration. So like today, what we have, most of you have SCG&E, I assume, as your provider. Maybe you have an alternative, but we do have, for example, programs for low income and for seniors and for disabled that pay a lesser rate with these care programs, and that is something that my understanding is that this program that was mentioned, the income-based electric rates, would jeopardize programs like that, and that's certainly not what we want to see happen. And so we will be revisiting that issue as well in the next year. Oh, this is a really good question. Healthcare workers in skilled nursing facilities. So, yes, we approved a law. It was SB 525. The governor has not signed it yet, but I think he will because there was an agreement between workers and hospitals and clinics. We will be increasing the minimum wage of healthcare workers to $25 an hour over the course of several years. We are going to do it first at the hospitals that are operating on a profit, so not the hospitals that are really hurting, and we have some hospitals that are having a difficult time. But the ones that are on a profit, they will be the first ones to be required to get to 25. Some of our community clinics, we have San Ysidro Health Care down here in the South Bay. They needed a little bit more time to get to 25 because they're a nonprofit. They don't have as much money. And so we've allowed them, I don't remember the years, that's why I don't want to tell you, but they have a few more years to get their workers to 25. And the question is specifically on skilled nursing facilities. We are also increasing the wage of skilled nursing facilities to $25 an hour. If you leave your information, we can tell you exactly what the law says of when that will happen, because again, it's different for different types of hospitals, it's different for clinics, and it's different for facilities. So, but we can get you the exact dates on that one. Okay. Ooh, what are the incentives for the middle income affordable housing? What is considered middle income in this district? Okay, so the incentives that I talked about is, let me give you an example. If you have a piece of land, and this is only intended in the areas where are near transit, where you're seeing sort of these 3-story buildings being built to increase density. If you have a piece of land where today, let's just say, hypothetical, you can build 100 units, and you're going to build them and you're going to lease them or rent them, or you're going to sell them at the market rate, so at like $500,000, because that's what they're going for these days. If you're building that type of a project, but you also build low-income housing, then you're actually able to build more. So the law allows you to build 100, but you decide as a developer to build low-income housing. You build 15 of those units, that's because it's 15%. Then you're able to build 50% more units. What does that do? That gets us affordable housing built, and it gets the developer the ability to build more units so they can recuperate the cost of the low-income housings, which they have to rent out for less than what the rate is to rent in that area. The bill that I got passed then says if you do that, and then you build middle-income housing, and what we define as middle income is up to the area median income of 140%. Currently, the median income in San Diego, I hate to give numbers because it changes and I don't want to get it wrong, but it's probably $80,000. Maybe it's $89,000. I saw it somewhere recently for a family of 4. So this would mean that you could earn 140% of that, which is roughly $110,000 as a family. So if you've got 2 working adults, that's a very reasonable expectation to have a salary of that amount. That is what middle income is. And so if you build housing for those people and you guarantee that that housing stays at that level for people, that income level, you're able to build an additional more units to help you offset the cost of the lower income units. And so that's how that program works. Class 6 cars will have to pay extra fees due to emissions, special license and limited usage. You know, I don't know about that, but so I can't answer that question, but I'll definitely look into that. That could be something, you know, that you're referring to in this question, Ruth, because of We're moving to electric vehicles. The governor has put in an order that by 2030, all new vehicle sales will be electric vehicles, not gasoline vehicles. And so-
what's your stance on that?
Well,
You're taking away our choices as to what kind of
Well, it's-
vehicles we can drive. And our gas.
so it's only new vehicles, so no one's required to force out of your vehicle. In fact, I don't think we're going to see a large-scale adoption, particularly in our working class community, because people, I've had my car for 14 years.
Are we gonna have to pay
And-
$10 a gallon in order
So,
to keep our?
so what's
our
interesting,
gas vehicles?
that's actually a concern, because you could see that happening, right? As everybody becomes electric, the price of gasoline could substantially increase. And, what does that mean? And so I've raised that question. I don't have an answer for that. What I think needs to happen is we need to have more incentives, especially for communities like ours that can't afford to buy a brand new electric car, provide like bigger rebates for people to be able to afford to
Or
do that.
retrofit our houses
That-
to put all
the
in
electric connection,
electrical
right.
appliances. I mean, it's impossible.
Yeah.
What happened to freedom of choice here in the United States?
Yeah, so I
Especially
don't
here
know
in
what's gonna
California.
happen with the cost. I am concerned that, especially people who keep their older cars, like frankly, I will probably do that, and most of my family, then what happens to the cost of gasoline? I don't have an answer.
Catch 22, it's either you get an electric car or you keep your own
Okay.
car.
Yeah, and you're paying for gas.
So let me answer this final question, because I want to answer it.
Excuse me,
Chula
I'm
Vista,
sorry. What about the mileage tax? Is that really something that you're just thinking, or is it something that's?
so I just met with the Sandag representatives today, actually, and they voted to not include the mileage tax. It's not something that I support, and at least Sandag, which is the San Diego region, they're apparently no longer pursuing that, so.
Well, that ACA would include all the mileage tax, exit tax, the gas tax, all kinds of taxes, wouldn't it? It would include an increase not only in property taxes if it passes.
No,
but they have
let's
to
just be
have-
really clear. It is not an increase to taxes,
I think
period.
you're making too much light, I mean, you're not making enough of that law. And I just hope that when the ballot comes out, that the language in it is so explicit that even the most.
It's complicated
less
enough to
intelligent-
understand when you know it.
goes
That's
over
true.
to, so many people that they just end up voting.
So let
wrong.
me answer this question. We're past 7, and I thank you all for staying a little later. Appreciate that. Chula Vista complains that there's no money for a present upkeep and outsources many departments. How will the city of Chula Vista or other cities support support infrastructure of more housing with cars filling the streets and so many cars parked on both sides of the streets causing accidents? This is a very specific question to Chula Vista. I would say that, that as a former council member, what we did is we tried to make sure that as developments came in, that we had development fees so that we could build not just the streets, but the libraries, the police stations, the fire stations that help support that development. And I assume, and I mean, I'm sure Chula Vista does the same, but as it relates to more cars on the street, when
That's the
you
problem
build
with that
more,
high density also.
when you build more housing, you
High
are going to
density
have
housing.
more,
Mandating-
let me finish, please.
Mandated by the state.
when you build more buildings, you are going to have more people, and some of those people are going to choose to drive. So that is definitely something that could happen.
That's why I mentioned in the question, because of the density situation and the amount of housing that there, Chula Vista or any other city. I mean,
Yes.
surely National City and Imperial Beach are probably saying the same thing.
Yeah.
We don't have money to do just pavement repairs. I know that the San Diego mayor is trying to do all of San Diego streets as this incentive. But, all these incentives for these developers building additional housing, they don't provide enough low income or middle income possible sale places
Yeah.
for the amount of percentage that they're building at the high regular level that they want to make. And they're not accommodating the city for long-term or even short-term support. And I don't mean just
So again, developers, when a development comes into a city, cities have fees that they have to pay for infrastructure projects, and then they get to put aside, and then the cities and the city councils, because I did this, decide what they want to fund with that. And so, in my case, I believe that funding, parks and libraries in the case of San Isidro and other infrastructure like that was really important. And so I moved so that the city would build those things, and it really depends on a city-by-city basis what you can get your city to focus to build as part of their infrastructure. So it's already 10 minutes past. I'm going to stick around. We also have other questions that get asked that we need to respond to, but I want to be respectful of your time, because if I went to a meeting and had to get back home, I wanted to be able to do that. So I appreciate your time. I'm sticking around. If you want to stick around, feel free to do so. Eventually, I'll need to get back to my kids, but thank you very much for coming. I appreciate your time.